All right, so there's been a lot of development this last couple of days on some of the war efforts with Iran, as well as negotiations, and as well with other countries, especially Israel and many other nations responding. So let's talk about some key things because there's a lot of big updates. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is Israel and Lebanon. Now, this person, Dylan Page, does a good job in doing a quick summary on the objective news that's happening. So let's quickly take a look.
While the whole world is watching Iran, something serious is unfolding in Lebanon, which could have catastrophic consequences. You see, this is Lebanon's longest river, and it cuts across the country, acting as a natural barrier to the south. And Israel recently made a pretty stunning announcement warning all civilians living in cities south of the Litani River to evacuate their homes and move north. They then ordered the destruction of bridges across this river, claiming that Hezbollah are using them to send reinforcements and weapons to the south of the country, right up against Israel's border. In fact, just last week, when reporter Steve Sweeney was attempting to cover this story, Israel struck a bridge right behind him. Human rights groups are now sounding the alarm, warning that these bridges are not just military infrastructure. They are predominantly used by civilians, and destroying them risks isolating any remaining Lebanese citizens in the south, which aid workers estimate to still be in the hundreds of thousands. Without these bridges, fleeing military conflict becomes more difficult, and access to essentials like food, fuel, and aid could become slower, and in some areas completely disrupted. But things only get worse from here, because Israel have now announced that they are expanding their ground invasion into southern Lebanon, warning that this is a prolonged operation. In fact, earlier this month, a military proposal was presented to the government to call up 450,000 reservists for this operation. And if this is approved, it would become Israel's largest ground invasion into Lebanon in more than 20 years. A senior Israeli official told Axios, "We're gonna do what we did in Gaza," referring to the flattening of buildings that Israel claim Hezbollah are using to store weapons and launch attacks from. And then, just yesterday, Israel's finance minister suggested that this conflict needs to end in radical change, saying that Israel's new border with Lebanon should be moved all the way up to the Litani River.
Now, put aside any assumptions on what you think a political bias and leaning would be, but rather just the idea that there's something going on as a conflict with regards to potentially a ground offensive or a strike with all of the other stuff going on. So let's take a look quickly on other news, where it's been reported that the 82nd Airborne Division is deploying thousands of troops to the Middle East, or rather to be on standby so they can be within striking distance or deployment distance of within a day or less. And this is causing many people to assume that some of this is going to turn sour, whether the negotiations work or not, but that ultimately something is going to be happening. Now, one of the other news that's breaking is that apparently Iran is rejecting some of the proposals that Trump and the White House have laid out as being necessary for some talks to end this war. And Trump has mentioned that Iran, and Trump can't mention who it is, they have been talking to some authority, and these talks are progressing well in some sense. Now, because there's a lot of sensitivity on being, and Trump mentioned that they don't want them to be killed, that there's a lot going on optically that is being assumed by the public as being what is happening behind the scenes, and also what really is negotiations behind the scenes. Now, depending on what level of your spectrum is in terms of quote-unquote conspiracy, a lot of these deals have already been made. You're just seeing it play out on the world theatrical stage, or they're progressing in some state, or they're progressing in some way, and it is just a little bit of a stretch with a little bit of lag or delay. It's not far from what the truth may be, which is being projected already. And with regards to ground forces and this whole element of the next level of military action, I want to read this post from Green Beret Nap Time that goes into some of the tactical military level stuff that might be something to think about as we move into possibly what may be this next frontier of the kinetic aspect of this military operation. He says, what we are seeing right now with the large element of special operation forces pushing to the Middle East is not just routine military movement. It's a deliberate positioning of capability and, more importantly, decision-making power at the highest level. The surge of at least 35 C-17 flights from key installations across the U.S. into Israel and Jordan strongly indicates the potential formation of a Special Operations Joint Task Force, or if allied partners are involved, a combined Joint Special Operations Task Force. That distinction matters, but the implication is the same. This is not a conventional buildup. This is the architecture required to execute decisive operations. Special operations forces operate fundamentally differently than conventional military units. A traditional force buildup of brigades, divisions, armored units signals preparation for large-scale sustained ground combat. That is not what this is. A SOJTF or CJSOTF is designed for precision, speed, and strategic impact. It brings together elite elements from across the services: Army Special Forces, Rangers, Navy SEALs, Air Force Special Tactics under a unified command structure that can execute complex missions with minimal footprint but maximum impact. These formations are built to dismantle networks, eliminate remaining high-value targets, enable partner forces, and create cascading operational advantages without requiring a massive ground invasion. The inclusion of the 82nd Airborne Division in this movement is also telling. The 82nd is not being positioned as the main effort, but rather as an uplift and contingency force. Their role is to provide rapid reinforcement, secure key terrain, respond to escalation, and enable the freedom of maneuver for special operations elements. They are there to support and stabilize, not to lead a conventional campaign. This combination gives the president something critically important: options. A SOJTF or CJSOTF provides the ability to act quickly without committing to a large-scale war, apply precise force where it matters most, scale operations up or down based on conditions, and achieve strategic objectives without the political and human cost of a full conventional deployment. Most importantly, it creates a pathway to victory without a massive ground footprint. Victory in this context does not mean occupying terrain with large formations. It means achieving decisive outcomes, neutralizing threats, collapsing hostile networks, and shaping the environment through targeted intelligence-driven operations. That is exactly what Special Operations Forces are built to do. If the objective is to finish the job, this is the most effective way to do it. A SOJTF or a CJSOTF allows the United States to bring its most capable and adaptable forces to bear while avoiding the risks and long-term commitments associated with conventional boots on the ground warfare. This is not escalation for its own sake. It's precision positioning for decisive action. And anyone saying any different is either doing so out of ignorance or because they want to use any force movement into the Middle East as a club against the president. So again, get ready, because what we are seeing is some element movement in terms of having something prolonged that's kinetic and possibly boots on the ground, but from a special operations perspective. And we're seeing, again, big picture is the white hats, Trump, the good guys, trying to defeat the black hats, the deep state, whoever it is that's entrenched. And what we're seeing at an optics face value level is only what can be digestible for the average person, such that it wouldn't create that much more chaos. It wouldn't create that much more division, but it's clean, it's swift, and it's precise. And all of this, whether it's planned to some degree beforehand, years, decades before this, or if it's being done and it's only being presented little by little because a lot of it has already been done, or a lot of it is being done, but secretly behind closed doors, whatever that is, only time will tell, and only God knows fully. But we, as we're researching, as we're praying into it, as we're trying to figure out and understand what's going on moving into the end times, this is something to be praying for, to be watching out for, and also to be careful in how we discern, how we digest information, and to make sure that we are not reacting knee-jerk reactions and being able to say, oh, that's not good, Trump and these guys are not doing this well, or whatever it is. Remember, warfare is unconventional. It's psyops. There's stuff that you do and you project such that it doesn't matter for the public. Trump doesn't care about any of this image type stuff. Rather, he wants to win. The White Hats want to win. And if that means information and irregular warfare with regards to the perception of appearing weak when you are strong, and maybe quoting some Sun Tzu, a lot of this is being done for a reason. So be careful, be alert. Just want to give you guys this quick update. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below on what's going on. I want to do more updates as time passes, as more things develop. And also, if you guys want to support me, I'm continuing to ask for your prayers and financial support as I do my own missions and various things in the background with me and my teams. If you guys want to help me out, the link is down below, givesendgo.com/chrisyoonyt. I also have PayPal, Zelle, Venmo if you guys want to support me in that way. Love you guys. Thank you guys. Talk to you guys very soon.